I think what Jesus offers us in our relationship with him is an opportunity to believe what he believes about us. And then the question is, what does he believe about us beyond that you were worth dying for, but that your past doesn't define you, that you have the ability to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth when you show up. And so I believe that for those of us who are truly beginning to understand what freedom looks like, there is an unraveling, there
Yes.
is a peeling back of belief systems that no longer serve us,
Yeah.
belief systems that actually keep us oppressed
Yeah.
when we should have freedom. I'm wondering, would you mind sharing maybe a belief that you once had that kept you oppressed, that you had to shed in order to really experience freedom?
I spent my first 5 years in foster care, and so just of where our family was at the time, and I had to be honest, a wonderful foster parent. She was a wonderful woman, but as I grew to adulthood, I had this feeling of being disposable, rejectable, not worthy. That I had to be more, and that will define that will define your every. No one had to say anything, although other things were said over the years. I would show up wondering if what would I do to get to belong here, to be enough here, to be acceptable
Wow.
here, and that would define how I'd work. That would define the relationships I was in. What's that old Rolls Royce song? I'd rather have a piece of you than all of nothing. That kind of. I would tolerate certain things that weren't healthy because I didn't know that I
Yeah.
was worth more than that, and it was a deeply ingrained belief. Some of us have had things that have happened to us that defined us before we knew what it meant to be whole. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so to bring that to Jesus was like, well, I can sing it and I can say it, but I don't know what that means, because you have to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And some of it was, I mean, it was a number of things. It was a journey of freedom. It was a journey of freedom. It was a journey of thinking, okay, this is, like you said, there's a belief system already there. We're all discipled by
Yeah.
something. We just want to make sure it's the healthy thing.
Yeah.
And so what it was in that instance was to say, okay, God, what do you say about me? What do you say about my beginnings? What do you say about my middle? What do you say about my end? What do you say about my value? What do you say about my worth? And so it began with Psalm 139 and taking these. There's a particular part of it which says, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. And it was me, rather than my experience shaping my theology, allowing God's word and my theology to redefine my experience. I would stand in front of a
That's
mirror
great.
and read it over every part of my body. Read over it, like, I praise you because my eyes are fearfully and wonderfully made. I praise you because my skin is fearfully and wonderfully made. And sometimes I'd argue with God midway through and say, yeah, but I don't like that bit. Could you give me some abs? Could you do this? And it honestly, it didn't feel transformational. It didn't feel it. But just because it doesn't feel like you're being transformed doesn't mean you're not being
That's so good.
transformed. Because the word is living and active, and you got to let it live and act. And so over time, God was just working on me, working on me, working on me, working on me. I'd invite the Spirit of God to come and change my life again, and I'd read these words again. And over time, he was my confidence. He was my he writes a new story over our lives, doesn't he? And so that was my
Yeah.
journey, and that was one of the bigger ones. But it happens in smaller things as well. In some of the broken relationships that I've walked out of, I've often found I've needed a word to walk on. It's like, God, what from your word can I walk with you on this? How do I invite you into this? And when I'm tempted to avoid it and say I'm fine, the Lord reminds me that you can't heal what you don't name. You're just not gonna. But for me, I found sometimes it's felt like an army crawl, walking through. Sometimes it's felt like a victory song. Sometimes it's felt really mundane. But the consistent piece in it all is that Jesus has met me again and again and again, even when I've not felt it.